Hello, it's a modern investing on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and our guest today is Jim E. from IT Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you, Sasha. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, let's start with what's happened yesterday. So there were incredible market manipulation from the commander in chief. And interestingly enough, that someone or somebody or a group of people, we don't know that, made $1.5 billion in a matter of 1 minute, shortly before Trump's announcement that there are negotiations with Iran, which later on Iran denied completely. But money were made. I want to remind you about Martha Stewart, who was convicted of the
Insider
insider trading.
Right.
Actually, she profited of $80,000 and
I know.
spent some time in jail. So here we are talking about billion and a half. You know what? Sometimes, okay, billion and a half, somebody made the money. But remember, we are talking about futures contracts when there is a winner on one side and loser on the other side. So when somebody made $1.5 billion, there was somebody or group of people, most likely, who lost the same $1.5 billion. So, Jim, what's your impression of this market? How to trade it, and what's the impact of this horrible market manipulation?
Well, one of the things that the Trump administration has done is they try to shut down the watchdog organizations that used to cover things like that. And I thought Martha Stewart was picked out as a symbol when there were so many others that he could have gone after. But in any case, the people that were doing this type of thing have been disempowered by the Trump administration. So the desire to allow the very rich to get richer, and the rest of the people, who cares about the rest of the people? Rub elbows with them, and the idea is to allow people to do things in business that, and also in the markets and trade, that used to be scandalous, and because they would profit so inordinately, while others who didn't have that same information were just trusting in the system. So what this ends up in is a lack of trust in our institutions, and lack of trust that enters into the picture, then you will start to not participate.
So what's happened if, let's say tomorrow, Trump will says, okay, the deal is done. Now we are jointly controlling with Ayatollah the Strait of Hormuz. It's a great deal and so on. So the market will go up, Dow Jones will jump, say, 1,000 points. And then half an hour later, you'll say, well, you know what? They change their mind. They don't want that peace. So market will go down 1,000 points, right? So some people will gain a lot of money on this information, and then they will make money another way. They will short the market and Trump will say, no more
And there will
peace.
be people who know about the announcement before the announcement is made.
Absolutely, that's how they made their money. So this is another reason why I'm not staying essentially out of the market. I have a few positions, but the dividends, high dividends paying stocks, and a few other positions. But again, it's extremely difficult market to deal with that. It's possible to make money. There is no doubt about that, but it's a possibility to lose money just as well. So it's quite unclear what you have to do. Let's see. I have a big position on Oracle. I sold puts, which expiring on April 17th. Right now, at the moment, I'm losing money on that trade. But what I think is if I will be assigned, most likely I will. Even if I will make money on the trade, I will be assigned most likely. Okay, so I will have a large position in Oracle. I will sell calls, and I will defend that position at the end of the day. How long
Right.
it will take, I don't know. It may take a while. Actually, there are some predictions, which I heard even before this Iranian, how to say, special operation. There were some market participants, they quite high stature, that they were saying that there will be a horrible market for the next 10 years. There will be no more gains like it was before, definitely not by the time that Trump is in power, because there are just too many problems are getting one after another, and it's impossible. I even don't see how you deal with the debt, which is approaching now $40 trillion, and a horrible war in Iran, which is absolutely unclear which way it will go. I don't see a peace resolution to that because the Iranians who are in charge, they think that they're winning the war, that they can produce enormous damage, and in fact, they have somehow a missile that can hit 4,000 kilometers and they can inflict damage if they will hit the Diego Garcia base. And if that's happening, then US will lose everything. They will lose a bunch of their B-52 bombers and the B-2 bombers and the larger bombers. Yeah. Okay, I'll just quickly take that. Okay, Jim, you go ahead.
Okay. And I think also face the difficulty of knowing what will Trump do tomorrow. For example, he just paid $1 billion to the French government to stop a couple of wind power projects. One was in Rhode Island. I'm not sure where the
Michael,
other.
busy still. I will come down as soon as I finish, okay?
And the other was that if they started oil producing, fossil fuel producing plants in Texas. So, he stopped them in a couple of wind power, which is part of our future where it's appropriate. Wind is not always appropriate in every place, but off of the coast of Rhode Island, certainly it is. And so he paid France to shut that down and to move it to fossil fuel generating in Texas. So this kind of political shenanigans, again, it's $1 billion. It doesn't really add up until, to real money in Trump's mind. It's just $1 billion of American citizens' taxes that he's giving to France to change their projects from green energy to fossil fuel energy, and from Rhode Island and I think Massachusetts, I'm not sure, but New England and to Texas. So these types of things, they're going under the people's notice. He's doing this kind of thing, and because of the outrage in the war of choice in Iran, it's going under the radar. People aren't even noticing these things. But he might be doing something even more dramatic tomorrow. Who knows?
What's interesting here is that there is no more talk about $17 trillion in investments coming to the United States to create working spaces, to create new factories, or whatever it might be. Lately, I don't hear any more talk about $17 trillion. I think it's evaporated because the Gulf states, who would provide probably most of this money, they now see the reality that Americans cannot protect them. They cannot protect their own military bases in the Gulf. So Ukrainians now doing capable job of providing anti-drone defense, because now the Gulf states, they understand now that Americans committed a fraud by selling them against drones or Patriot systems, which are helpless against drones. So now they're saying that, wait a sec, you said that we are buying these hundreds of Patriot systems, so they will protect us against drones, but they don't. So this is a fraud. You're giving us something that would defend us, and it doesn't defend us. So I feel that the way things are developing, as soon as the war will be over, and one way or another, it will be over at some point. So the Gulf states will ask American politely to leave, all these countries take away their military bases and get the hell out of there simply because they cannot defend. So why would they commit $17 trillion to something that cannot protect them, right? So this is, as a matter of fact, something else is very interesting happening. There are no more talks about negotiating between Ukraine and Russia with help of the United States. There is no more talk, and you know why? What happened on Friday? Europeans providing Ukrainians with $120 billion on top of the purchasing of American weapons to deliver to Ukraine. They use Russian money as a collateral. So Ukraine taking that loan, interest free, and it doesn't have to repay it because before Russians will pay a reparation money to Ukraine, which is they will, while Putin is alive, it's not going to happen. So then, if Ukraine will not be able to repay the loan because of the reparation money, lack of reparation money, so then they can use Russian money without any going to courts or anywhere. They're just using a collateral to repay themselves. So what's interesting is because of that, remember the plans of Trump with Putin, the $12 trillion and $2 billion and so on. Now, the cornerstone of the strategy was using the Russian money, split half and half between Russia and the United States. So Russia would use this money, which is very problematic, for rebuilding the part of Ukraine which is under Russian control. And American will use money to rebuild the rest of Ukraine, which is very problematic anyway. But all that construction is now done and over with. There is no more Russian money. So Trump naturally lost any interest to this affair because, okay, so they want to fight, they want to kill each other, let them just do it. There is no money for me. So go hell and do anything. Now, on the other hand, Europeans now at the table. Europeans now say, so we're providing weapons, we are providing money, we are providing. United States, who you are? What are you sitting there? Who you are and what are you doing there? Get out of hell out of here. Repay $40 trillion and then we'll start talking to you. Okay, so US is out of equation in affair between Ukraine and Russia. But Trump is now much bigger fish to fry. It's Strait of Hormuz. So Trump wants to split half and half control with the Ayatollah and start collecting money from countries that needs use of Strait of Hormuz and start pocketing the money there. But this is incredible exercise. It's almost impossible because if they can reach the Diego Garcia, then America is out. They have to pack their things and just go home and as quickly as possible. So, okay, they're bringing the new troops, 2,500 Marines and some other. What are they going to do if Diego Garcia is not available? Where is it going to land? Where is it going to go? I mean, what? They might as well go back to New Jersey. I think it's quite safe place for them to be. So in this respect, all U.S. or Trump's strategy is very flawed. And all the talks about, oh, we are talking to Iranians and so on. Iranians are denying that they have even talks with the United States. Never mind negotiating and talking about this or that. There are no talks, period. And market yesterday, at the end of the day, it started to go down. It continued to go down today. And then what's the next strategy here? What do you think, Jim?
Well, yeah, there was no clear end game to begin with. We didn't know when we were going to win. Whatever winning looked like, we weren't told what that would look like. Except that we know now that the idea that they went with, although Trump is now blaming his Defense Department minister or secretary for it was his idea. So Trump is passing the buck now on to someone else, and as is usual, you can't accept blame. But the idea, I think, was that they were going to have a spontaneous uprising in Iran once they took out the leadership. And I think Bibi and Trump both kind of believed that. Although there was a very slim possibility of that, because when you're bombing the country, when the missiles are hitting all these targets, there's no uprising possible. People can't take to the streets; they're hiding. So it was a flawed thinking to begin with. The chances of that were less than 10%, and yet that's kind of what they thought was going to happen, and they could declare victory when there was this uprising. Well, it didn't happen. It hasn't happened. It may never happen. It could happen, but the reason that Trump was operating like this was he thought that he was going to do this and he would look like a hero, and that hasn't panned out. So
Jim, see, Iranian people feel betrayed by the United States when they didn't back their uprising when it was war. There is something else. You see, by killing Ayatollah, they removed an object against whom Iranians indeed could have uprising because they hated Ayatollah and his regime and so on. There is no more Ayatollah. So there is no more hateful object. So now they are, in fact, uniting against United States because they feel they're aggressor. They are bombing Iranian cities, infrastructure, and so on. So
the school Iranian children, and it was killed by the U.S. And so this is where their hatred is going, and naturally to Israel and to the United States, and it's entirely predictable. So it was just it's a war of choice and an incredible miscalculation of enormous, with consequences to the global economy. Yet, even in this disastrous turn of events, and which is roiled the markets, I still think in the companies that I'm following and have invested in and still hold are in the AI sector, and especially these companies that are producing all that's required for when I was back up for a second, when I was in systems programmer, I used the term CPU, the central processing unit. And now these companies use the term GPU, it's graphics producing.
Yes.
And these graphics require a great deal of memory, a great deal of speed. And, the chip makers that are producing those types of chips and those that are supplying them, they are still prospering. And I think even with all of this going on, they are still generating enormous revenues. And will continue because we're still in the beginning of the AI revolution. It's not going to go away. It's not going to suddenly drop off. There isn't going to be a bust in the AI sector for quite some time. So
I would be more cautious about it. You know why? It seems to me that Europeans more and more engaging in their so-called war, economic war, or it might call you any other names against the United States, because they understand that the United States is definitely not a reliable partner.
Right.
So they now have one incredible trump card in their possession. You're definitely familiar with the company ASML. It's a Dutch company. That company is doing what no other company in the world is capable of doing. They provide a blueprint and equipment for creating the microchip, which is then produce Taiwan Semiconductors, NVIDIA, and all others.
Right.
And if ASML will not even stop, but just slow down delivering of their products, all the AI infrastructure of US is doomed. And you know what significance of that is? That if you take GDP gross product of United States, which was last reading 4.3%, if you subtract AI business, there is zero. GDP of the United States minus AI trade is zero.
Yeah.
And most likely will go lower. So then all the equation, all the valuations of the companies, even NVIDIA or Broadcom or all those companies, are not immune to this development. Their valuation can suffer and they can go to much lower levels. That's why yesterday, kind of lucky day, because of the market manipulation, I was able to exit my last positions in NVIDIA, for example, and others. And the future doesn't look bright from my point of view at all. It will take maybe several months before market will stabilize at some level. But right now, I don't see that happening anytime soon. What's
Yeah.
your need?
Well, we've become takers, not makers. So yeah, if you subtract the AI portion of the GPU out of it, it is a negative proposition. There's pressure on the U.S. dollar. It used to be the currency of choice and this safe haven, and that's no longer the case. This wasn't the case under Obama. This wasn't the case under Biden. This is the case under Trump. And I want to emphasize that Trump and the MAGA party have lost a lot of credibility. Not necessarily with the base. The MAGA party is still the MAGA party. And, they are applauding Trump no matter what he does. But that the far left, of course, was always against him. The middle was mostly against him. The independents supported him in the last election to a large degree. The Latino population supported him to a larger degree than expected. And I think all of that has changed. And so I think in the midterms, we're going to see a change. And I think we're going to see a dramatic change. It was one thing to have the House in play, but it's now another to have the Senate in play as well. And I think the Senate is in play.
Yeah.
And so the cause for optimism, I think, is that things will change in a few months in November. And then when he is finally out of office, there's still reason for hope.
Return to normalcy.
Yeah, right.
Interestingly, I was listening a little bit to Fox News, and some of their commentators. What they're saying is this: leave Trump alone. Let him cook. He is cooking. So he will win the war against Iran. One way or another, he will offer trade deals, and then he will send his armadas, and he will do this. And let him cook. Don't touch him. Don't even try to analyze what he's doing. He is the winner, and that's what's going to happen here. Well, listen, if some people believe that, then okay, you don't let him cook. So far, his cooking is awful. Sometimes you cook the food, you're offering, oh, you're going to eat for dinner beef bourguignon. You're going to have wonderful steaks or so on. And all of a sudden, the steak is overdone, and all this wonderful beef bourguignon didn't happen at all.
And most
French fries.
Yeah, and there's plenty. You may be getting gruel. The billionaires are getting the beef bouillon, but we are getting gruel, and we'd ask for second helpings, but it's still not nourishing food that's being fed into the economy. The economy is suffering under Trump. The mainstream is in the main street is getting squeezed.
$17 trillion are not coming anytime.
All the promises have not materialized. He was going to be a boon for, he told us if Biden had been elected, the stock market would crash, and the stock market boomed. So a lot of these things, but in these trade negotiations with other countries, we used to be a little careful about believing what the other countries were telling us. Now we have to be careful what our own country is telling us, because we don't have trust in them. And this breakdown of trust is one of the lasting damaging impacts of the Trump presidency, the Trump administration, the Trump way of being, to bully and to take action and then ask for an alliance, when the time to ask for an alliance is before you take the action. And he doesn't care. He thinks we have the strongest military and we don't need anyone else. Well, this is a fallacy, and it's a delusion that every country needs everyone else. You know, the global economy was making many countries rich, and to throw this monkey wrench into the global economy will make everyone poorer. You know, so
Yeah.
except for the very, very few, and there's much talk about the 1%, but it's less than that. It's less than the 1%.
Jim, do you remember the previous Gulf Wars? U.S. was ahead of coalition of NATO countries, of Europeans. Even Ukraine helped with Iraq and the Afghanistan and so on. But now U.S. is alone. Nobody's helping them.
But that was negotiated. That alliance was negotiated before any action was taken.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the problem here is that there were no clear communications to American people, to allies, to anybody about the goals. What is this war against? For what's the case? They're talking about 47 years that Iran was the enemy of the United States. 47 years. So why now? Why not 10 years ago?
Why 46 or 48? Yeah, why 47?
Yeah.
What's magical about now? Yeah.
Well, it's atrocious. Well, maybe because he's 47th president. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But I think it's more the basic ego. You look no further than that. He thought he was going to be a hero. You know, there was going to be this uprising by the Iranian people who are hiding right now and take over the government, and he was going to be on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. And coming back to investing, I'm getting lost myself. I cannot give any suggestions, advice, or anything to anybody simply because I don't understand what is the base, what you can provide. I mean, what you can sell more of covered puts, cash-based puts. Why? The stock may go much lower than where it is now. So there is no bottom at the side. So, you may invest maybe in the companies like Eli Lilly or Pfizer or Procter and Gamble or, some other defensive stuff. Okay, you may do that. It's not my style of investing, and you consider. Although I do have Pfizer in my core portfolio. Okay, that's it. I'm not going to increase my position or decrease either. So let it just sit there and see what's happening.
That all of 2026, I have been doing that, just sitting and watching.
Yeah, that's probably the most prudent strategy. From my experience in investing, you have to wait until the bottom is reached. And when from the bottom, it will start, say, 2-3 consecutive days of gains. Okay, you may invest, and very slowly, very patiently, in increments, and so on. But you have to wait. The waiting probably is the best strategy in this market.
Well, it's a world of uncertainty, which can be made worse tomorrow by whatever action he takes. We can't put anything by Trump. And so the markets don't like uncertainty. They can't plan for the future. Companies don't know, should I build a data center to support the graphics that I want to produce in order to support the AI that's going to revolutionize my business? What about the energy? Is it do I have to build it in Texas near a fossil fuel generator? Who knows? It's hard to plan. And if it's hard to plan, what people like to be able to do is count on, from 5 years now, I have a 5-year plan. And in 5 years, things will be basically the same. Yeah. And no one can say that now. Who knows what's going to happen? He's done so much damage in such a short amount of time. He's got enough time to do more damage. And how much will it disrupt the global economy that he inherited, which was humming?
Yeah. Well, let's hope for midterm election, and hopefully Democrats will take the House. They may take Senate as well, but we'll see if it happens. And maybe that market will jump Dow Jones a couple thousand points up, and the rest S&P and Nasdaq and so on. But right now, the best strategy is to wait. Market is always there. It will be tomorrow. It will be a week from now, a month from now, or whatever. Just sit tight and wait. I think that's the best strategy. Jim, thank you so much for today's show. And we'll see you same place, same time next week. Hopefully with better news. Okay?
Thank you, Sasha. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.